mass in the room, so I think I'll go ahead and get us officially started. So welcome everyone to Ross Alumni Advantage Remote. I'm Lisa Morgan. Today joining us again, we have Shahnaz Broucek, Ross MBA 2011. Shahnaz is an executive coach and also a Ross professor. Today's topic is on shifting your self-talk for job search and career success. This is a subject that I'm so interested in because it's such a struggle and a challenge for so many of us. I've actually gone through the training that Shahnaz is going to be talking about today, and I think it's fantastic. So super excited to be able to bring this to you. This is going to be all about identifying that inner judge and saboteur, those saboteurs that can get in the way of our ability to thrive during job search and careers. So thank you, Shahnaz, for being here and welcome.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, so we will go through a few housekeeping items before we jump in. Everyone is muted for the session because this is a webinar, but feel free to use the Q&A to submit questions and the chat feature just to share your thoughts. The questions that we don't get to during this session, we should have a few minutes at the end to address. All right, so a little bit on the work that Shahnaz does. So first of all, Shahnaz and I go back like 10, 12 years to the EMBA back in 2009. So just love working with Shahnaz, and we've done a lot together over the years. Shahnaz is the founder of OptimizeU, which is an executive coaching and consulting firm. And that's a transition that she made post her MBA here at Ross. So she's going to talk a little bit about that. In addition to that, Shahnaz is a mindful self-compassion teacher and is trained in positive intelligence, which is at the heart of what she's going to be sharing with you today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Shahnaz.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. And to everyone on the call, I'm so glad that you showed up today to talk about this topic with us. Lisa and I are both very passionate about it. And I can tell you that she really supported me in my own journey when I was here at Ross as an EMBA, trying to figure out who am I, what am I going to do next, and what's the pivot that would really fit me authentically. So it's just great, Lisa. So fun to do this with you and in support of all of our alums. So I hope that you'll find it really helpful. We're going to go ahead and get things started here. Let's see if I can get my mouse going in the right spot. There we go. And so, when we're starting our career search process, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle of it right now, right? Or you're in a role at work and you're trying to figure out, how do I move into this next level position? I'm competing against a bunch of other people, or wherever you are in your own career journey. We want to feel like we show up at our best, right? We want to feel confident. We want to feel like we're in control. But often we beat ourselves up by the way that we talk to ourselves. We can be really negative in that inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. And our goal today is to help you realize that you can take charge of that, and that there is a framework you can use that will sort of simplify all of this for yourself and give you an opportunity to really reclaim that inner strength that we know you have inside of yourself and is waiting to be brought out into the world more effectively. And the ways that we talk to ourselves can increase our stress or it can decrease our stress. And so we want to help you to be able to decrease your stress with these tools. I thought it might be helpful to share a little bit around my own career journey with you and what this has looked like over the years. And I've kind of come to think of it as, over time, I tend to throw myself into the deep end of the ocean over and over and over again. And that's where a lot of that imposter syndrome lives, right? Where we start to feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I wonder if everybody else realizes I don't know what I'm doing. But I've also, in that whole journey, been trying to figure out, how can I move more towards this upper right quadrant where passion and purpose are really aligned and allow me to thrive. And so early in my career, I was an auditor for Coopers & Lybrand, which today is PricewaterhouseCoopers. But if I'm really honest with you, passion was pretty low, purpose was pretty low for me in that role. But I loved the people and I loved the client work. So I did learn about myself in that process. And ultimately, decided that it was time to launch in a new direction and make a pivot. So I worked with a career coach myself at that point and made a movement into recruiting. I was an executive recruiter for a couple of years. And when I did that, I had to do a lot of discovery, right? There was so much about my strengths that I hadn't really fully thought through, and I didn't know if I had the right background. I was thinking I can do this job, but can I convince someone else that I can do this job? Right. And so maybe as I'm sharing a little of my story, you might look for your own story and see where is there overlap. Maybe you've had some of these experiences yourself. And Lisa, I'm sure that you've had a lot of clients over the years who've kind of had, a combination of these happen. From recruiting, I moved into working for a client of mine who was a recruiting client as a business development manager. And that time I was having to reinvent myself again in an entirely new position. So they were interested in hiring me, thought that I could expand my role into this business development capacity. I didn't know what I was doing. I never created a position for myself before. And so again, I found myself in this sort of unknown territory, trying to figure things out and trying to be good enough, trying to be, worthy of this position and this investment that this company was making in me. Eventually, I did get pretty confident, right? And I was moving more and more towards that upper right-hand quadrant of passion and purpose when I started my own mortgage company. And you might not think, for somebody who's an executive coach and a professor today, maybe that doesn't sound like it would be super high passion and purpose. But the piece behind it that was that I was in, I had this playground to experiment in with employees and thinking about organizational structure and how do I make it fun and interesting. And I love learning. So it gave me that opportunity too, especially early on. And so the funny thing about it, though, is that I got there and my card said president, and I immediately felt like an imposter because I had never taken a loan application before. So just imagine that, right? You're the owner of the company, clients want to come and see you, you're sitting down to take a loan application, and you're feeling like they're asking really basic questions and I have no idea what the answer is, right? So I knew a lot about the business. At a high level, I understood what it was going to take to make money. I understood the contract side of it and hiring people and all of those parts. But I really didn't know the basics of taking a loan application. So again, deep end of the ocean, that saboteur is showing up and imposter syndrome. And then what happened over time, though, was that, as many of you may recall, there was this financial crisis, right? The mortgage industry was totally revamped and gutted, and there were a lot of changes in just the way that we operated, and it wasn't fun learning for me. I like learning, but it's got to be something I'm interested in, right? And I was not. So suddenly, even though it had been this high passion and purpose role for me, it dropped significantly. And I wanted to do something different. That's when I came back to Ross to get my EMBA. And I know that there are some of you on the call that are in that process too, that are kind of doing that exploration of what could it be that would come next that would bring you to that far upper right corner where, today, if I'm reflecting at all on where I am, I absolutely love the work that I do as a coach and a professor. And I feel so fortunate to be able to do that. And that's what we want for you, right? And so when I sat back and I was thinking about all of these different moves that I've made and the work I do in mindful self-compassion and the work that I do with positive intelligence, what I came to realize is that I've been applying a lot of the concepts from positive intelligence and mindful self-compassion throughout this whole journey. But I loved the way that there was this framework to pull it together and make it simple for people to express this. And so that's why I'm here today, is because I think there's an easier way to not just learn it for a career, but learn how to manage that inner dialogue more effectively, to be more aware of it, and learn a system, a design. It's a form of design thinking, I would say, that allows you to take charge of your life in any situation. And here we're applying it directly to career. So I'm really excited to dive in and share this with you. And so we're going to use mindful self-compassion as a little bit of a foundation for that today. I've done a lot of training in that space, and so, you know, for those of you that are MBAs, for example, we learn tons of frameworks when we're at Ross, right? There's all these different frameworks that we're learning, and you might pick bits and pieces from different frameworks, and then you kind of, you know, morph into the way you think of something. And so for me, I love the mashup of mindful self-compassion and positive intelligence, because I think they're so powerful together. So I'm going to do a little bit of that for you. And then I'm going to share this positive intelligence framework, which has to do with understanding the judge that is in all of us, the way we judge ourselves and others and our circumstances, and also the saboteurs that accompany that judge in the way that we approach things because of how we've learned to adapt to challenging circumstances. Things that we developed as far back as our childhood. And then we're going to share the other side of things, right? Kind of the other side of our brain that offers this sage perspective and the design thinking sort of approach that I've been alluding to. And what we'd like for you to leave here with is some level of a solution to a challenge that you've been facing personally, with some piece of your own career search or your career management, wherever you are in that whole journey, and not just a system for this one-off thing, but for any challenges that you run into in the process. And then we have a special offer for you at the very end that I look forward to sharing with all of you because of the training that I'm going through with PQ, which gives me some access right now to some special offers. So I'm just excited to share it with you. And Lisa and I kind of chuckled about this next picture, because it just reminds us so much of what it can feel like when we're in the job search process. And you know, maybe things are feeling a little unclear. We know that there's answers out there somewhere. I just don't know where should I go next, right? What is it that's really in the way for me? Maybe I'm not clear about what's in the way, or I don't realize how close I am to the solution. You know, maybe that next phone call is going to be somebody saying, "You got the job. We're excited to offer it to you." Right? Or, you know, or maybe it's like, oh, it's right there, and there are all these elements of it, but it's still not entirely clear. And the reality is, we tell ourselves stories about these things. We tell ourselves, I'm not that close. I don't have the right contacts. I don't have the right background. I'm comparing myself to other people and all of their skills, right? Not feeling confident about my ability to compete in this market, or I believe that it's not a good job market, or any of those kinds of things. And there are the things that are certainly true, and there's data to back up on certain things. But there's also the ways that we can add stress to the story that we're telling ourselves, and make it that much harder. Lisa, what are some of the things that you notice come up in the job search with some of the folks that you're coaching?
Yeah. So if we're talking about, you know, saboteurs, right? Inner blocks, inner critic, imposter syndrome. I mean, I would say it comes up at every phase of job search. You know, everything from, you know, sort of that fear during the self-assessment, you know, phase, or the soul searching phase, where you feel like, yeah, I can't do what I really want to do, or I'm not going to be able to figure it out, to, you know, almost like fear of networking, not wanting to reach out, feeling like you're bothering people, making assumptions about whether they want to talk to you or not, you know, to interviewing, you know, just basically those inner blocks around interviewing, or you know, focusing on the wrong things because of the story that you're telling yourself, to even negotiating, feeling like, oh, I shouldn't ask for more money, or I don't want to push the envelope, or they might pull the offer. So all those kinds of things that end up, you know, not allowing us to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great example. And I hope part of what all of you are noticing, as Lisa's sharing these, if some things are resonating for you, that just know for sure that you're not alone in them, right? That other people experience these as well. And, I think the thing is often, no matter where we are in that whole process, we can feel sort of lost. We don't go through the process of interviewing all the time. And when I told my own story about career, right? Each time I was doing something that felt pretty radically different than what I was doing before. And so I didn't feel like I was learning things that were directly transferable. When they talk about what got you here won't get you there, I was like, oh yeah, I get that. It's not related. How do I connect the dots on this? Even though the reality was that there were ways to connect the dots. And honestly, Lisa, you helped me to do that a lot, to figure out, I can remember you saying to me things like, you've had a pattern of success. There's every reason that you should be successful again. I mean, that comes back to me because of how you helped me to see myself differently, right? And so if I could tell myself that message, it allowed me to have more energy and confidence in the search going forward, even though it wasn't necessarily a direct path either, right? And so in the job search, we can feel lost, unsure of what we're doing wrong, not sure what to do next. Maybe we lose confidence in ourselves in that whole process. We might think it's taking too long, right? All of that, blame ourselves without really understanding the whole picture of what's going on. Assume that we didn't interview well when the reality is there was already an internal candidate or whatever else it might be. But it's an important part of the process just to realize we're not alone in all of this. And I do really believe that it's critical to approach our own job search with mindful self-compassion. And mindful self-compassion can be a really useful foundational approach to any challenges that we face, right? So if we can just bring a little bit more compassion towards ourselves regarding the struggles that we're facing, we can reduce our stress, which will allow us to show up with more energy, more positively, more optimistically, and with this energy of connection, which will help us to interview well. It'll help us to think more clearly, to be more creative in the solutions and things that we bring up in that whole process. And the reality is the research is really clear on this. This is Kristen Neff and Chris Germer. Individuals who are more self-compassionate tend to have greater happiness, life satisfaction, and motivation, better relationships and physical health, and less anxiety and depression. Good formula for having a solid foundation under you when you're in the job search. And so I want you to just keep this in mind. And there are 3 parts of mindful self-compassion that I'm just going to quickly touch on to plant some seeds for all of you about this. The first one is mindfulness. The second is common humanity. And the third is self-kindness. And so when we talk about mindfulness in the positive intelligence framework that we're going to be sharing, mindfulness is really just about being self-aware, right? It's about recognizing your thought patterns, knowing your sort of default tendencies that developed in childhood and got, further developed in practice throughout life, in ways that there might be a strength related to it, but there's also a side where it's an overuse of strength or believing that you need to do something and kind of pushing through with that, as you might think of sort of a negative energy behind it. And there are many ways to practice mindfulness. We're not here to really expand upon that other than to just encourage you to think about ways that you personally can be expanding your span of awareness and using the positive intelligence framework as a tool for self-awareness. So they refer to PQ reps, positive intelligence reps, as the way of practicing mindfulness in this particular model. And you might think of it as like building mental fitness, similar to physical fitness. You're trying to build the part of your brain, just like lifting weights in the gym, through practice and repetition, strengthening that part of your brain that can be more creative and do more of that design thinking that is so important to the whole process. And so the next part of the mindful self-compassion model is common humanity. And with common humanity, I think there's something really wonderful about approaching this kind of work as a group, because you start to recognize that you're not alone in your challenges, right? The things that are coming up, other people are struggling with as well. And, it just gives us hope when we're not isolated in the challenges. And I so wish that I had understood this model earlier myself, because honestly, I spent years just beating myself up thinking that I should have been able to do things more easily, and thinking that other people somehow had it easier, when the reality was they were struggling too. And so the third piece is self-kindness. And with self-kindness, instead of beating yourself up with sort of critical inner dialogue, it's about being in touch with when you're suffering, when you're feeling bad about how things are going, you're feeling disappointed in yourself or the circumstances, or maybe someone else. And instead of needing external validation, you're giving it to yourself with kindness, just because you're hurting, to make yourself feel better, not to be self-indulgent, but to actually just take care of yourself. And when you do that, then, it helps you to have more energy for the work that lies ahead. So positive intelligence, positive intelligence, first and foremost, it's a book that was written by Shahnaz Broucek, who is a professor at Stanford. He also created an app and a training program for coaches related to this whole program. And the app is something that is also available, that I'll talk about a little bit later on. But basically, positive intelligence is about using your brain as effectively as you can, knowing that there is, it can be your brain can be your greatest asset, but it can also be the part that really gets in your way, right? And so positive intelligence measures the relative strength of that part of your brain that is your greatest ally, and also the part that can get in your way. And so through this whole process, we're applying it to job search, right? And thinking about how we can really, work with our brains more effectively to produce the kinds of outcomes that we all desire. This is it's a program that's been heavily tested. I think there's over 500,000 people at this point that have taken the assessment, and students at Stanford, executive teams. I'm bringing it into my work at Ross. With MBA students and undergraduate students. There's over 50 different countries, translated in multiple languages. And so it's been really heavily tested. And basically it was created through qualitative research and factor analysis, which looks for what's the root cause, right? So when we're trying to figure out what's going on for ourselves, often we're looking at the surface level challenges, right? Like, Lisa, can you think of one that would be a surface level that maybe there's something deeper going on?
Yeah, with regard to job search.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for instance, I'm not getting any callbacks, right? I've been interviewing or applying. Nobody's calling me. So that's a surface level challenge. And usually there's something, there's a lot of other explanations, right? Besides, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my resume. I need to work on my resume.
Yeah. Yeah. And there might be, maybe there underneath it all, there's a confidence issue that's actually going on. That is the bigger issue, right? It's the root cause issue. Maybe it's really the judge underneath it all, right? So it's looking for what is the root cause of what's going on. And so when you look at the positive intelligence model, there's a side that's related to the judge and the saboteurs, and then the other side that's related to the sage perspective. And we'll start with the judge, right? So with the judge, we often judge ourselves harshly, but we judge others and our circumstances as well. We judge ourselves thinking we're not good enough. We might judge others thinking they're at fault for something. Maybe the recruiter didn't respond quickly enough to you, or someone who said they would make an introduction for you didn't do it in the time or in the way, that you expected and needed it from them. Or maybe there's something about your circumstances. We're in a pandemic. Could there be anything less fair, right? All of those kinds of things come into play, and we all experience the judge. And then there are these accomplice saboteurs, and the accomplice saboteurs. I'll go through each of them, but what I'd like you to do is think about a particular challenge that you're facing right now in your own career or job search. And as we're going through these, just see which one of these seems to be coming up for you. All right, and then we're going to launch a poll in a moment. The reality is, if you take the assessment, you'll find what your sort of order and rank of these different saboteurs is. You'll be able to say, okay, my most common one or two are these couple. My top two are hyperachiever and pleaser, right? And they can serve me really well until they don't, right? And when I first was learning about this assessment, I didn't know if I even really wanted to get rid of my saboteurs or try to minimize them, because pleaser is something that has always allowed me to build relationships effectively with people, right? I'm a strong relationship builder. And hyperachiever has allowed me to be really productive, right? I can get a lot done. People appreciate all of the work that I do, right? And those two can co-conspire to say yes to everything and work super hard at it, right? And that makes me endearing to them, or at least I believe it should, right? But the downside of it is when I start to realize, oh my gosh, I've been working myself to death on this and they don't even appreciate it. Or nobody ever does anything like this for me, right? So there's the side when, there's a strength side of it that can feel really productive and positive and kind of the sage side of things, but there's also the saboteur side where it crosses over into this negative territory, right? So let's just take a look at them, and they're pretty self-explanatory, right? The avoider, controller, hyperachiever, hyperrational, hypervigilant, pleaser, restless, stickler, and victim. So just, Lisa, if you can launch the poll for us.
I will.
Let's see what's in the room.
Yeah, so think
Who's
about
in the Zoom room with us.
Right, exactly. So think about which one applies to you the most in most situations. Mine is my number one is avoider. So that's worked very well for me all my life, but it has issues, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll then.
Okay, great.
We'll see what comes up.
Great. I can't wait to see this. All right, I see some avoider, hyper-rational, some pleaser. Oh, they're all starting to pop up. Yeah. Not seeing much stickler yet. It's funny, I was just doing a workshop earlier this week and I was seeing a lot of stickler, which was interesting. People in education, what can I say?
Yeah, I have some stickler in me. Stickler is my number two, although it's a far second to avoider.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I see a little bit of stickler, a little bit of perfectionism there, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing that pops up, right? Stickler pops up a lot in job search with resumes, like, oh, it's got to be perfect. And it's like, well, it doesn't really have to be perfect.
We've got, thanks, Lisa. But we've got hyperachiever as one of our top ones. We've got avoider as one of our top ones, but also we're seeing hyperrational, pleaser, restless. Yeah, and with hyperrational, to be honest with you, if that's coming up for you too, sometimes people will even find this model without understanding all of the science behind it. And I'm going over it fairly quickly, right? I'm not getting into a lot of the more, there is a lot more data behind this, but I'm not getting into that today because this is more workshop-y and less knowledge transference. So if that speaks to you, it might be even more important for you to actually read the book and have the data behind it to give you confidence in it, right? So just something to consider. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. And so I'll try to keep those in mind, especially hyperachiever and avoider. We'll see if we can keep those in mind a little bit, but we'll play with this as we move through the model. And so let's just consider, oops, what do I do, Lisa? Just click stop sharing.
Probably. Yeah, I'm good. Oh, yeah, it's no longer sharing on my side. So.
Oh, okay. So, somehow it's still popped up on my screen. I'm just trying to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. But oh, okay, got it.
Got it. Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So let's just consider for a moment, a scenario, right? So in this scenario, this would be a common kind of thing that could happen in the job search. Maybe you got referred to somebody and they didn't reply to you, right? So the saboteur might say something like, even when I get an introduction, I'm terrible at networking. I better keep applying online, right? So feelings behind that might be disappointment, embarrassment, hopelessness. Those types of things could come up. And maybe just putting in the chat, what do you think, what saboteurs might be at play there? In that first example, let me know what you see, Lisa.
Yeah, even when I get an introduction, I'm terrible at networking. I better keep applying online. So this could be, I mean, certainly this is the judge. So the judge is the saboteur that's in all of us, right? The main saboteur, and judging self. I'm terrible at networking. I better keep applying online. So yeah, when I think about saboteurs, I mean, that might be hypervigilant. It might be, yeah, it might be avoider, right?
Could be avoider, could be
yeah.
stickler, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things like, I mean, it depends on what direction you take it in. Stickler
Right.
might say, well, I need to write a better email.
Yeah.
You know, when I try to do those reach
Exactly.
outs. So I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna rewrite it and rewrite it. Or I'm gonna, you know, seek a ton of feedback to make sure that I have exactly the right language before I send this email off.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Great, thank you. And so let's just try it out. And let's keep in mind common humanity, right? That this is for everybody that's here on this call. They're one of your opportunities. We often feel better when we help other people. And one of the ways that you can help other people today is to just authentically share something that you're challenged with, knowing that there is somebody else on this call who is also challenged by it. So what I want to invite you to do is to pick some facet of the job search that you're struggling with currently, or it could be something you've struggled with in the past. And think about, what does that saboteur say? And how does that feel? And just pop it in the chat.
Yeah. What does that inner voice say? Yeah.
Yeah,
that negative voice. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And, you know, Shahnaz, while we're waiting for people to think about, you know, something that they've struggled with or are currently struggling with and what their inner voice says, you know, one thing that I have to share is it's been so freeing for me as a career coach to hear everybody else sharing these things, because what I've come to realize is how universal it is. It's universal. So you're not alone. This is just a natural part of humanity. And so that's what I think the beauty of kind of group work in this regard is that you come to realize that. So anyway,
So
that's
true.
really, really great. So Shahnaz, are you reading the chat or do you want me to read it?
I can't actually see it somehow.
Okay, so I will go ahead and read to you.
Thank you.
Sure. So James, thank you for sharing. What James shared is you're not good enough. You don't check all the boxes.
Right.
Yes.
Such a comment. Thanks, James.
Yep, I'll keep going.
Okay.
Cirilla, I relate well with the HR staff, but seem intimidated, seem to intimidate the hiring manager. Yep. So, and that might be a belief that's going on there. Here's another one. I can't find a job that I think I'd be passionate about.
Sure.
Yep. And then
which feels really defeating, right?
Yes.
To feel just to lose hope about that. It's really hard.
Absolutely. And then here's another one. Someone who just got into a new job. My saboteur says, how did I land this role? I'm not qualified and out of my element.
Yeah.
Right. Total imposter syndrome. Yeah. Which, you know, what I always say to that is, if not you, then who? Right. If not you, then who? Who else could do this? You know, are you sure that, you know, that anyone else would be any better than you, really? Or at least, yeah.
We put a lot on ourselves, and there are even some, you know, there's some gender issues around that too. A lot of times women won't even apply for jobs because they assume that they're not qualified enough. And so they will sort of under apply for what they're qualified for. You know, noticing just that inner dialogue is so important. But we're not going to linger on this, right? We're going to move into the sage perspective and think about, what can we do about that when we get in that sort of negative mindset? What's the opportunity for us?
That's great. And so Shahnaz, let me pause you for just a second.
Yeah,
so I
sure.
probably, you know, maybe we want to come back to these later, because I probably have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 more. So maybe if we have time, we can come back to them.
Yeah. Are there some themes that you're picking up, Lisa? Can we hit on a few of
Yeah.
them?
So here's one right here.
Yeah.
This one says, let me just get there. Am I blacklisted because
Mhm.
of my demographic? Whether that's because I'm a white male, because I'm, a black female, whatever, like just
Mhm.
because of everything that's in the news right now around
Mhm.
diversity, equity, inclusion. So whatever your
Absolutely.
story is, whatever that thing is about you, what's the story you're telling yourself and how does that hold you back?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, the to take that in, right? Mindfully know you're not alone,
Yeah.
and to have self-compassion for that challenge, first of all, and then to start thinking a little bit more like, okay, how can I really think more creatively about this situation and what the circumstances are? How can I apply design thinking or the sage perspective? And so with the sage perspective, we're looking for, what's the part of the brain that's associated with positive emotions, where we feel calm and peaceful, more able to focus and have clear-headed thinking, be more creative, big picture thinking. And often it's like looking for the gift or opportunity in the situation, right? What is waiting there for you in some way to discover or learn because of the challenge that you are now facing? And it's often, it takes us so long. We have to get years past a challenge before we realize what the gift in it was. One of mine would have been when I was telling you about the financial crisis, right? It was, um, could seem on the one hand like it was totally disastrous, but the gift in that was that it offered me this opportunity to move into something so much more rewarding for me that has really been my life's work. And if that had not happened, I don't know that I would have ever taken that step. And so, I think it's a helpful way of being able to shift yourself, and we'll give you some more specifics around how to do that. There underlying all of this, there is this positive intelligence operating system. And so I just want to make it a little more visible to you, like how do all these pieces fit together, knowing that we're giving you the outline today, right? There's a lot to all of this, but we want to give you the general framing and understanding. So we've talked already about the judge and saboteur side. There's also the sage side, and there are 5 powers that I'm going to share with you related to that. And what we're trying to do is to maximize the efficiency of our PQ operating system, of our brain, right? Our brain power. And we do this by being aware of the negativity bias that leads to our judge and saboteurs, strengthening the sage part of the brain through emotional intelligence, design thinking, and mindfulness, right? And so these 3 strategies, we want to try to weaken the saboteurs, that response, be able to shift out of it more quickly. We want to strengthen the sage perspective and then build that PQ brain. And so that's where we're heading with all of this. And we've talked a little bit about the stories that we tell ourselves when something difficult is happening in our whole job search process or our career. There's some kind of event that's triggering, right? And um, we believe something about it, right? It leads to some belief. And, kind of like when I was thinking about shifting from being the president of a mortgage company into doing something leadership development related, not knowing yet that it would be coaching, not knowing yet that it would be teaching. Um, I started to feel like I was pretty unsure of myself. Is anybody really going to believe I have the right background for this? How am I going to compete against other people who have 20 years of experience in this direction? And so, um, and I also didn't feel like I no longer had a reference from somebody who knew me well enough because I was the leader, right? So I didn't have a boss who could give me a great reference. I just had to tell my own story, and that felt limiting too. So there's a saboteur version of that, and then there's a sage version of it, right? And so we have these thoughts, they're neurologically sort of grounded in our body, and they can lead to the saboteur perspective where we start catastrophizing a situation, like I'm never going to be able to convince someone that I'm qualified, or the sage perspective, which is this is my opportunity to get really clear about who I am and how to message my response and to practice that, right? To get to my own level of competence around who I am and what matters to me, convince myself first so I can convince someone else. And I think, it was Henry Ford who said, at least I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Right. And that's kind of the essence of this. So let's just try this out. And what I'd like you to do is just take a moment. There's a couple of prompts on the screen here, but what's a situation or challenge that you want to resolve? Right? Or what's an opportunity that you in some way want to move forward? So I want you to just take a moment and let's just take 3 breaths together, 3 deep breaths to kind of settle in, because we've been kind of moving at a clip through all of this, right? And to just catch your breath and sit with these questions, let's just take 3 deep breaths. So start with the first breath in and exhale. One more deep breath in and exhale. And a final breath in and exhale. And so just sitting with these questions, identify for yourself what's something that you can work with in this next exercise that we're going to share. So have something in mind.
And for a lot of folks, they may want to have the thing in mind that they just shared in the chat.
It could be that. Yes, yes. Yeah, and so we're going to play with this using the SAGE perspective. And I want to introduce these 5 SAGEs first. And what I want to ask of you, let's see here. I'm going to have you thinking about the scenario that you have. We'll go through and look at the empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. And as I read them to you, just see, is there one of these that really feels alive for you right now? You're only going to have to pick one, okay? And we'll come back to navigate. So that one I don't want you to pick, but I'll share it with you here first. We're going to do navigate all together. But empathize is about that mindful self-compassion piece that I've been talking about, right? What's the most compassionate thing you could say to yourself in this situation? Or if it's something about judging someone else, is there some way you can put yourself in the other person's shoes? The next one is explore. Without blame or judgment, what are all the factors that might be contributing to this challenge? The third is innovate. So trying to quickly, just without evaluating them, without having a filter or talking yourself into why they won't work, just put down on paper any ideas that you might have without evaluating or judging them. Navigate is about seeking guidance from your wiser elder self. We will do that as a group in a moment. And then the last one is activate. So it says procrastination list. This is just a tip. Sometimes it's really helpful to write down everything that you're procrastinating about. And instead of picking the thing that you think you should start with because it's really the most important thing, you just pick the easiest thing. You ask yourself, what's the easiest thing I could just get started with? And you start there, let yourself build some energy, and then do a little bit more. But maybe considering what's on your procrastination list, what specific actions, up to 3, would you be willing to commit to right now? Maybe consider, how would your saboteurs sabotage this? And what's your SAGE response? So we'll just take another minute or 2 to capture that. And if you're comfortable to share in the chat, if there are some examples, you could just share, you know, if it was something about empathize, you can put your statement to yourself or innovate. If there's something that you could share that you think would be helpful to other people on the call, and in the spirit of the common humanity that we are all in.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're taking the situation that we identified earlier, and we're seeing how we can apply one of the sage powers to that situation right now in the moment.
Yes, other than navigate, which we're going to do together.
So we've got one coming across.
Okay.
Activate, taking action, even doing the smallest of things always helps. Yes, I agree. Right? An object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. Yeah, so get into motion.
Yeah.
Good,
And are
thank
there,
you.
look to see, is there something right now that you can see beyond understanding the concept? Is there something specific that you're willing to put into motion? Maybe considering that procrastination list.
Great.
Okay. Any others that we want to cover, Lisa?
Yeah, so I'm not seeing any others so far.
Okay.
Oh, here comes another one.
Okay.
Yep. Victor shared, I think the explorer power is interesting because there may be some perspective you have or others have that that you are avoiding as a way to not judge. So really exploring, yes. And Abraham says empathize on concern about reaching out to referrals. The person I'm reaching out to likely has gone through the same thing, and maybe there's nothing for me to bring to the table, and it's their turn to pay it forward. Yes, that's great. So empathizing with the other person. And Abraham, I always say with regard to networking, you know, who's to say that they might not want to know you too? So there's, you know, often there are things in our background that other people are very interested in. So yeah, that's a good thing to empathize. And then Andrew talks about time here, current workload and work-life balance, finding more time for self-reflection and improvement.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so is that around, did that come through innovate? Did that come through curious?
Right. Yes, Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he doesn't say which one, but yeah, finding more time. So I think about, innovate as a possibility there.
Sure.
For sure.
And
Yes.
I
and
mean,
explore.
sometimes they don't have to be discrete either, right? Like look for a good idea, see how it blends a couple of these together. Sometimes can be, maybe there's empathize and innovate in there, right? Understanding, oh, I'm not getting that time for myself and I really need it. And what is something I could do? That might be a way to combine them, right?
Yes.
And even underneath that, exploring what's really been in the way. Oh, maybe I haven't really had the time to slow down and to really be with myself.
Yep. So Andrew added that he's trying to innovate himself through continued education.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. So let's try a practice, a mindfulness practice of wiser elder self together, still keeping in mind this challenge that you're struggling with yourself right now. And I am going to just invite you, I'm going to actually invite you, I'm going to stop my video for a moment so that you'll just hear my voice as I'm guiding you through this. And I want to just invite you to do this visualization together. If you like, you can close your eyes. Just settling into your chair, bringing your attention to your body, feeling the weight of your body in your seat and your feet on the floor. While you're paying attention to your feet, you might try to find as many of your beautiful toes as you can. You can wiggle them if you like. Just finding as many of them as you can. And now let's just try a simple PQ rep with your sense of touch. Gently rub your index fingers together with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. And now rub all of the fingertips of one hand against all of the fingertips and palms of the other. Just slowly feeling all the sensations of touch. And now taking a few deep breaths. Noticing the rising and falling of your chest and your stomach with each breath. And letting your breath settle into this natural, relaxed rhythm. Just noticing the gentle rising and falling of your chest or your stomach with each breath. And now you're going to visit your wiser elder self. Towards the end of your life, your wiser elder self is healthy in your mind and body. Just imagine and notice the kind of dwelling that this elder wiser self lives in. The body of this person. Imagine what kind of setting this is that this being lives in. What does it look like? What are the surroundings like? And see something about this setting, the physicality of the setting, that's interesting to you, and just notice it. Your wiser elder self, healthy of mind and body, having lived a great life. Notice the attire that your wiser elder self is wearing, the kind of attire that fits this being, the spirit of this being. Notice the physical posture, whether this being is sitting or standing. The overall aura of your wiser elder self. What's the energy? What's the emotion of this being that you can see and feel? Notice the facial expressions of your wiser elder self. The eyes, the facial expression. And now as you approach your wiser elder self, ask this being, what's important for me to pay attention to in this situation or problem that I'm considering? What's important for me to pay attention to in this situation or problem that I'm considering? Ask your wiser elder self, what truly matters here? What truly matters here? And ask your wiser elder self, what doesn't matter so much and I shouldn't worry about it? What doesn't matter so much and I shouldn't worry about it? And now ask your wiser elder self, is there anything else you want to tell me? And now you thank your wiser elder self and you embrace. And as you do, you become one together. your wiser elder self becomes one with you, part of you, and you feel this being inside of you. You feel this beautiful being, this beautiful energy, this wisdom inside yourself. Notice where in your body you feel the presence of your wiser elder self so that you can anchor yourself to it. And now begin to feel yourself on your seat again, coming back into feeling your body on your seat, the weight of your feet on the floor. And gradually recognizing that you have this ancient wisdom in you, this being always with you, who you can consult at any time at a moment's notice and access your deeper wisdom. And as you're ready, you can open your eyes. And if it's helpful, you can make a few notes to yourself. And I will restart my video. All right. And I know we are quickly coming to the top of the hour. If you want to add to the chat, what showed up for you in that process? What's becoming clearer, perhaps? What did you find through that process? Maybe in a new perspective. And so we'll let those comments start to come in. As we do, I just want to wrap up with a couple last comments, Lisa, and I'll stick around for Q&A for anyone that wants to stay on the call. But really being able to shift our script into speaking more positively to ourselves, right? To really be in that encouraging voice through this whole process, the voice of the wiser elder self, right? To say you have what it takes to work through this. Trust yourself, it will all work out beautifully, right? That's the place of wisdom that will really help us to move forward no matter what the challenge. And going back to all of these other components that we've talked about today, starting with self-awareness and self-compassion, recognizing, right, this is part of the human experience. You're not alone in it. And when we judge ourselves or others or our circumstances, this is really all about that saboteur in us that we all experience, the judge and the saboteur. But it's our opportunity to pause and consider with design thinking, with that sage perspective, what our real opportunity is. We can grow that part of ourselves through mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and design thinking, right? Bringing all of those together in the way that Shahnaz teaches through positive intelligence. And remembering that our outcomes and circumstances can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And so I wanted to let you know that these assessments are free and available for you. We're going to share these slides afterwards. Yes, Lisa, we're going to share these.
Yes.
So you'll have these links.
Yes. Yep.
And I encourage you to take these. It'll be really helpful for you to actually go through and have the questions. They only take a few minutes each, but you'll get a report that's customized for you with your results. And because I'm going through this training program right now, one of the things that is available to me, there's an app related to all of this work that there's a 6-week program with 3 hours a week of recorded content and daily practice, as well as a pod support of a small group where you get that experience of common humanity that I think is so powerful. But it's a $995 value, but because I am going through coach certification through December of this year, I can have 5 participants every 7 weeks go through the program. And so my invitation to you is I'm going to give you a link in a moment. If this speaks to you and you think this might be really helpful for you, I want to encourage you to sign up. There's a short questionnaire for you to fill out. And if you think that this would help you, this is something that I'm doing just free of charge. Honestly, Shahnaz has given away so much of this content to me. I feel like this is one way for me to pay it forward. And I have a few pods that I've worked with already using this program. And honestly, the level of support that they are giving each other has just been profoundly engaging for all of them. And for me to observe as a coach, I've been blown away by how supportive. And I think we don't need to be alone in our job search when there are other people who are going through these things too. There's a great opportunity for you to learn from each other and support each other, build your network in that process, learn about other scenarios, and really deepen your skill set. So if this speaks to you, again, just want to invite you to sign up. I do have a limit of 5 participants every 7 weeks for that free offering, but I will engage as many of you as I possibly can. And if the time doesn't work for you, I would still encourage you to get the book, read the book, do the work, like do it on your own or do a book club, find a different way. But if you think it might be helpful for you, go that extra mile and pursue it. So there's a link to sign up. PQ signed me up through SurveyMonkey. Lisa's also got a link here for just some feedback on today's session. And I just want to say thank you, Lisa, for having me here, and to all of you for joining us today. I hope that you found this helpful, and I wish you the very best in your career search and in your careers in general, in your lives.
Yeah, terrific, Shahnaz. And as we're wrapping up, I have to say that the comments that are coming across in the chat and the Q&A are people sharing that their wiser elder self enlighten them that they worry too much. And that, and that in the overall scheme of life, the small doesn't really matter. So just for those of you, I suspect more people had that same thing come up for them. So I just wanted to share that out.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, so true. I mean, a lot of times we do worry deeply about things, and it's the saboteurs at play. And if we can sit back and try to think big picture and long range, it can alleviate a lot of stress.
Yes, great. All right. So Shahnaz, I want to thank you again sincerely for coming and speaking to us. It's just great. Every time you come, it's such a gift. So thank you. Shahnaz is going to stick around and answer any final questions that might pop up. But in the meantime, if you like this webinar or have other ideas for us, I don't know if you had a chance to grab that QR code that was up on the screen, but we'd love it for you to give us some quick feedback. And we'll also send that survey out after the fact, as well as the recording and a PDF of the slides for those of you who would like to take it in again. So thank you, everyone. You have our email information if you'd like to follow up. Special thanks once again to Shahnaz. Have a great day, everyone. Take care and go blue.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, and I'm really happy to stick around. I don't know if we still have people on the call or.
Yeah, so I'm hearing, I'll just, as folks are leaving, I'll just wrap up and say, yes, Lisa, we will send you the SurveyMonkey slide with the link.
Right.
Eileen says, Shahnaz, thanks for the wiser elder self practice. That was powerful. Robert, thanks so much for your kind comments as well. Yeah, so I think we're all set, Shahnaz. With that, we can wrap it up.
Okay, great. Great.
Okay.
I finally figured out how to open up the chat. Do you want to stay on for a moment, or should we wrap up here and then rejoin?
Yeah, we could stay on for a moment. Yeah, if you want to.
Is it just us now, or do we still have
actually, no, I'll go ahead and end the meeting for everybody. And then yeah, we can hop on.
We can stick on and debrief. Okay, super.
Okay.
I'll hang out.
All right.